Hey everyone, welcome to our CISSP study group. I'm B-Dubs. I'm super excited to see you all here. Whether you're looking to take the CISSP exam soon, or you're just looking to level up your knowledge, thank you all for showing up. In our last session, we began diving into Domain 1, Security, Governance, and Compliance, with objectives 1.1 and 1.2. If you miss any sections throughout this study, you can visit the playlist I created to catch up anytime. I'm dropping the link for that in chat. Today we're going to tackle our next two objectives. 1.3, evaluate and apply security governance principles, and 1.4, understand legal, regulatory, and compliance issues. This isn't just about passing a test. It's about understanding how security actually works in the real world. We're going to make it clear, practical, and even, dare I say, a little bit fun. So let's get right to it with exam objective 1.3. Evaluate and apply security governance principles. Security governance is our starting point. The reality of information security today is that we're not just locking doors anymore. We're managing a constant flow of data and facing ever-evolving threats. Security governance and compliance are the frameworks that help organizations navigate this complexity by protecting your assets, aligning security with business goals, and meeting legal and regulatory obligations. Think of security governance as the foundation of your entire security program. It's the what, the who, and the how of security management. It's the policies, the roles, the processes, the practices, all designed to ensure that security strategies are directly aligned with the business's goals. And why is this so important? Because security shouldn't be an afterthought or a roadblock. It should be an enabler, something that helps the business achieve its objectives safely and efficiently. A robust security governance ensures security is comprehensive, consistent, and actually works. Now let's break down the key components of security governance. First, strategic alignment. Security planning needs to happen at all levels: strategic, tactical, and operational. It's not just about buying the latest firewall. It's about thinking long-term into the future of the business. Second, integration with business processes. Security needs to be baked into things like acquisitions, divestitures, and third-party management. And third, we have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Everyone from the CEO down to the newest employee needs to understand their part in keeping the organization secure. We're going to talk more about the specific roles in a little bit. And finally, security control frameworks. These are the blueprints. Proven structures like ISO 27001, NIST CSF, COBIT, and others, they provide a systematic way to manage security. And while you don't need to memorize every detail of each for the CISSP exam, you do need to understand their purpose and how they provide a structured approach to implementing security controls. For example, NIST CSF focuses on identifying, protecting, detecting, responding to, and recovering from cyber incidents. Let's take a look at how to align security with the business objectives. The core purpose of governance is to enhance organizational value through new processes, products, or services. All governance activities, including security initiatives, should contribute to this value creation for the business. Effective security governance requires a top-down approach, where corporate governance leadership drives that security strategy. Security should function as a proactive enabler, rather than just responding to problems after they occur. Strong senior management support is essential. Without it, you may need an internal champion or an external consultant to advocate for security's importance. The governing body typically includes the board of directors, the CEO, and senior management. Their collective role is to increase organizational value through strategic planning, risk management, performance measurement, and sound decision-making. The CEO holds direct accountability for corporate governance. Security effectiveness directly correlates with leadership quality. For proper alignment, security governance should incorporate perspectives from senior management, HR, legal, and IT, often through what's called an organization governance committee. As far as the implementation goes, scoping identifies the relevant controls based on your environment, while tailoring refines them to align with your organizational goals. Without the support from senior management and the board, security initiatives will struggle to succeed. But ultimately, the CEO bears final accountability or organizational direction. Security has to be part of all processes in an organization. There are special considerations to make during acquisitions and divestitures. For example, there's an increased risk during acquisitions due to limited visibility into the environment and control over the organization. Governance committees can help protect organizations during this time. Now remember, we discussed accountability versus responsibility in the last session. Only one person, group, or entity can be accountable, but multiple people can be responsible. Accountability can never be delegated, but responsibility can. This is why security is everyone's responsibility, but accountability remains with the board, CEO, and C-level members, and the owners of assets. If something bad happens, like a major data breach, the CEO is ultimately accountable to the board and shareholders. This doesn't mean they're personally configuring the security patches, but it does mean they're responsible for ensuring a strong security program is in place. Now let's say there's a data breach for data stored in the cloud. The cloud service provider, or CISSP, likely has a contractual-based responsibility for protecting the data, but the owner of the data is ultimately accountable. In the exam, if you're asked who is ultimately accountable for something, it is likely the most senior person. For example, who's ultimately accountable for the finance system? The best answer is the VP of Finance. But if they aren't listed, it would be the person above them in seniority. Let's break down the key security roles and their responsibilities in an organization. We have leadership roles. Those are the owners, controllers, and functional leaders who set and enforce security policies, essentially creating the rule book for data handling and protection. Information systems security professionals design and manage security policies, serving as the architects of the organization's security strategy. IT officers develop and implement technical solutions while ensuring alignment with those security policies. Then we have operational roles. Operators, administrators, they handle the day-to-day system management, including patching and troubleshooting. Network administrators, they maintain network infrastructure and security. Custodians, think like database administrators. They're going to protect the assets they don't own. Think of them as trusted guardians of company data. Oversight roles, that is, when you have oversight, information systems auditors act as internal checkers, verifying that security policies are appropriate and effective. For example, they might review firewall logs to confirm only authorized traffic is passing through. Users are responsible for following security policies in their daily work. The supporting framework, this is the security function that's acting as an enabler, providing all roles with the necessary tools, knowledge, and architecture to protect assets effectively. Success depends on owners managing their accountability while ensuring custodians have the resources needed to fulfill their responsibilities. Let's take a look at due care and due diligence. These two terms are critical for the CISSP exam and for real-world security. Due diligence is about doing your homework before you launch something, researching risks, planning security measures. Due care is about responsibly implementing and maintaining those security measures after launch. Think of it like this. Due diligence is the planning. Due care is the doing. They work together. You can't have one without the other. A simple example is due diligence is researching vulnerabilities before releasing a new application. Due care is monitoring and promptly patching vulnerabilities after the application is live. Due care is the accountable protection of assets based on and aligned with the goals and objectives of the organization. Due diligence is the ability to prove due care to all your stakeholders, including management, regulators, customers, and shareholders. So if we look at penetration testing, for an example, due care would be the owner of the system requesting that a pen test be performed and authorizing the remediation of the vulnerabilities that they find. Due diligence would be proving that vulnerabilities were addressed efficiently to management and other stakeholders. Now, if we shift gears to compliance, this is where we get into exam objective 1.4. Understand legal, regulatory, and compliance issues that pertain to information security in a holistic context. Compliance is all about meeting the rules, legal requirements, regulations, contractual obligations, It's a complex landscape, and non-compliance can have serious consequences: fines, lawsuits, reputational damage. Effective compliance isn't just about checking off all those boxes. It's about protecting your data, building trust, and ensuring the long-term success of the organization. A comprehensive approach is needed here to address your policies, processes, technology, and your training. Let's take a look at some of the key areas of compliance that organizations have to navigate. We have contractual obligations, which are the agreements with your partners and vendors. And then we have legal requirements. We have laws like the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the CFAA. All of those things we have to consider. Industry standards, like PCI DSS for credit card data. And then regulatory requirements, like SOX for financial controls, or HIPAA for healthcare data. This list is not exhaustive, and it varies by your industry and your region. Think about how data breaches can expose organizations to legal risks, especially if negligence is involved. And don't forget about intellectual property. Things like the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, can come into play here. Every organization needs to understand the current threat landscape and how to deploy security resources effectively. Not every attack can be prevented, but we do want to make attacks not worthwhile, too time-consuming, or expensive. Be that low-hanging fruit. Threat actors are looking for the easiest way in. You want to make it difficult for them. But this isn't just about the malicious threat actors either. Keep in mind that threats can be unintentional or accidental, and we want to make sure these accidental risks aren't low-hanging opportunities either. Security professionals must work with legal and compliance to understand all legal and regulatory issues that affect their organization. Intellectual property laws are designed to encourage the creation of intellectual goods and protect them. Intellectual property is any tangible product of the human intellect that is protected from unauthorized use. There are 4 types of intellectual property. Trade secrets protect proprietary business information, and there's no disclosure required for these. Patents protect functional innovations and novel ideas. You do have to disclose that you have a patent. Copyright protects the expression of an idea, such as books, movies, or songs. Disclosure is required, and the protection is for a set amount of time. Trademarks protect things like a color, sound, or symbol that distinguishes one product or company from another. Disclosure is required here, but there's potentially an infinite term of protection. And then we move on to import and export controls. These are the country-based rules and laws that manage which products, technology, and information can move in and out of those countries. These controls serve multiple critical purposes. They protect national security by preventing sensitive technologies and information from falling into the hands of potential adversaries. They also safeguard privacy by regulating how personal and sensitive data can move across borders. Finally, they help maintain economic stability by controlling the flow of strategic resources and protecting domestic industries. Organizations must carefully navigate these regulations, as violations can result in severe penalties, including fines, trade restrictions, and even criminal charges for serious breaches. The Wassenaar Arrangement was put into place to manage the risk of cryptography falling into the wrong hands. And then we have the International Traffic in Arms Regulations, or ITAR, which controls the export of items like missiles, rockets, or bombs. We also have the Export Administration Regulations, or EAR. It focuses on commercial use related items like computers or lasers, or items that have military applications. Many countries have laws called Transporter Data Flow Regulations, Data Residency Regulations, and Data Localization Laws. These require that specific data remain within a country's physical borders, usually personal data of citizens. If a country has strong privacy laws, they may wish to prevent personal data from being stored or processed in countries with weaker laws. This can be really challenging for organizations to keep track of, with the proliferation of service providers and global cloud services. GDPR is a great example of a data residency regulation. And let's talk about privacy. GDPR, or the General Data Protection Regulation, is a really big one when it comes to privacy. It mandates getting consent from users and collecting only the minimum necessary personal data. The CCPA, or the California Consumer Privacy Act, gives California residents rights over their data, access deletion, and opting out of sales. This one is a lot like GDPR. And PIPEDA is Canada's federal privacy law. These laws are all about protecting user data and respecting individual privacy rights. Compliance is crucial to maintain trust and avoid heavy penalties. Now, we need to understand privacy and what that means. Privacy is the state or condition of being free from being observed or disturbed. Privacy laws apply to both government and private businesses. If personal information is disclosed as a result of a breach, it can harm the individual, and the organization could face fines or damage to their reputation. It's essential that personal data is well protected. This can be very complex for multinational organizations. Security professionals must work with legal to identify all applicable laws and regulations. After we consult with legal, it is the security function's responsibility to ensure the correct controls are in place. Remember, to have privacy, you need security. You should keep in mind that depending on location, your personal data may be referred to in different ways, and the definition may vary. Personal data is any data that can be used on its own or in combination to identify an individual. Direct identifiers are items like name, address, biometric data, and your government ID. Indirect identifiers include information that alone can't identify an individual, but they could be combined with other information to do so, such as gender, birthday, race, religion, employment information, medical information, and so much more. Again, it's very important to communicate with the legal team to be clear about what constitutes personal data and what regulations apply. Let's explore some of the key roles and responsibilities in privacy management. Think of it like a well-organized theater production. Where everyone has specific parts to play. Starting with oversight, supervisory authorities act as independent privacy watchdogs in each of the European Union states. They investigate complaints and enforce regulations. For example, in the UK, this role is fulfilled by the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO. When it comes to the specific roles, there are several crucial players in privacy management. Think of data owners as the captains of the data ship. They're the executives that hold the ultimate power and responsibility over specific data. And just like a ship's captain makes critical decisions about navigation and crew safety, these senior managers decide who gets access to what data, how it can be used, and what protective measures are put in place. Picture an HR director, for instance. They're at the helm of the employee data, making key decisions about who can view sensitive personal information and how it needs to be safeguarded. Then we have data custodians. Think of them as the watchdogs of your organization's data. They're constantly on guard, implementing and maintaining security controls to protect assets. While they don't have the data themselves, they're responsible for following security requirements set by data owners and ensuring that data remains secure throughout the data lifecycle. For example, a database administrator who manages access controls and encryption for employee records is acting as a data custodian, diligently protecting sensitive information. Your data controllers, think of these as the masterminds behind data processing. They're the ones that call the shots under the what, why, and how of personal data handling to determine the purpose and the means of protecting data. Picture a hospital's leadership team sitting down and making crucial decisions. What patient information do we really need? How will we use it to provide better care? Who gets access to what? These are exactly the kinds of decisions that make them data controllers. And while they're making these big picture decisions, they'll often work with the data processors, like cloud service providers, who handle the day-to-day data operations under their direction. Which brings us to data processors. Think of these as the hands-on workers who handle data according to the controller's instructions. They're like the skilled chefs following a restaurant owner's recipes. They process, store, and manage the data, but they don't make the big decisions about why or how it should be used. For example, when a hospital, the controller, hires a cloud service provider to store patient records, that provider must follow strict rules about how to handle the data, implement proper security measures, and only use the data as the hospital directs. And finally, we have your data subjects. These are the stars of the privacy show. These are the actual people whose personal information is being collected and processed. Think of yourself when you sign up for a social media account or visit your doctor. You're the data subject. While data subjects don't have direct responsibilities for protecting data, they do have important rights, such as accessing their data, requesting corrections, and in some cases, asking for their data to be deleted. In our hospital scenario, patients are perfect examples of data subjects. Their medical records, contact details, and treatment histories are all being processed. To help organizations comply with these privacy laws, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, has created guidelines. These offer principles for organizations to use to structure their privacy practices. Collection limitation. It means only gathering the data you need for a specific service or for a specific reason or use. Data quality means keeping that information accurate. Purpose specification means clearly stating why you are collecting the data. Use limitation means that you should only use the data for that specific purpose that you stated. Security safeguards mean protecting the data. And openness is about being transparent, being honest. Individual participation means allowing individuals access to their own data. And finally, accountability refers to the data controller being responsible for following these principles. The privacy landscape is global. Japan has the Act on the Protection of Personal Information. South Africa has the Protection of Personal Information Act, and this just scratches the surface. The key takeaway here is that organizations need to understand and comply with the regulations in every country where they operate or do business. This is a big challenge, and it highlights the need for a strong legal and compliance team. Here's a practical example. Imagine a multinational application. It needs to comply with the GDPR in Europe, the CCPA in California, PIPEDA in Canada, and potentially industry-specific regulations like HIPAA for healthcare data and PCI DSS for credit card data. This is a really complex juggling act. The goal is a seamless privacy experience for users while you're meeting all of these legal requirements and building trust. This is just a reminder of the layered approach that we need. Before we move on from privacy, it's important to have a deeper understanding of privacy impact assessments, or PIAs. Let's look at these in a bit more detail. So what is a PIA? It's a process to identify and mitigate privacy risks associated with processing personal data. Why are they important? They help us identify and evaluate risks, determine the appropriate controls, and demonstrate compliance, especially with GDPR. When do we need a PIA? PIAs should be conducted when implementing new systems or processes that involve personal data, when we're making significant changes to existing systems, or when we're considering new data sharing initiatives. They're particularly important for high-risk processing activities. A PIA should be conducted early in the project lifecycle to ensure privacy considerations are built into the design from the very start. The assessment should be reviewed and updated regularly as your circumstances change. The key elements of a PIA typically include a detailed description of the proposed data processing activities and their purpose, assessment of the necessity and proportionality of the data processing, identification of privacy risks to the individuals, evaluation of existing or planned security measures and controls, consultation with stakeholders and subject matter experts, and then the documentation of your findings and your recommendations. Now, under GDPR, a data protection impact assessment, or DPIA, is sometimes legally required. This happens when the processing is likely to result in a high risk to the rights and freedoms of the individuals. Think of things like systematic and extensive profiling, large-scale processing of sensitive data like health information, or large-scale monitoring of public areas. So if a company is developing a new application that uses facial recognition technology to track users' emotions, that would almost certainly require a DPIA. And finally, GDPR Article 35 outlines the key elements of a DPIA. It must include a description of the processing operations, an assessment of necessity and proportionality, an assessment of the risks, the measures to be addressed in those risks, and it all needs to be documented and signed off. So let's move on to compliance. Think of this as building a secure fortress. We need the right blueprints or standards, and we need the right building materials, your controls, to make it all work. And who helps us design this fortress? This is a team effort. Legal experts are like the architects. Privacy specialists act as the safety inspectors, and auditors ensure everything meets code. Together, they help us navigate through a maze of requirements, from contracts to industry regulations. But how do we make sense of all these requirements? Imagine putting together a complex puzzle. Each piece represents different laws, regulations, and industry standards. Our legal, privacy, and audit teams, they work together to see the complete picture. And here's where it gets interesting. While these teams identify what needs to be done, it's the security team that brings the plan to life. They're like the master builders, implementing the right controls. Meanwhile, the compliance teams act as your quality control, and your legal and privacy teams continue to guide the overall direction. Think of the asset owners as your project managers. They need to know exactly what they're responsible for so that they can keep everything running smoothly. Now, that was a lot. So we've covered all the essential aspects of security governance and compliance. We explored governance principles, including organizational structure, policies, and procedures. We dove deep into the privacy fundamentals, examining roles like data owners, custodians, controllers, and processors. The OECD privacy guidelines, they provide a framework for understanding privacy principles such as collection limitation, data quality, and purpose specification. We also examined privacy impact assessments, PIAs, and their crucial role in risk management. Our discussion covered the complex global privacy landscape, including regulations like GDPR, the CCPA, and other regional requirements. We explored how organizations must navigate multinational compliance challenges while maintaining effective security controls. This session emphasized that security governance and compliance are fundamental pillars of organizational security. They work together, governance providing the structural framework, while compliance ensures adherence to external obligations and standards. Together, they create a comprehensive approach to protecting against threats, managing legal risks, and safeguarding organizational reputation. So what are we going to take away from here? Let's recap the essential takeaways from our session on governance and compliance. First, understand privacy roles and responsibilities. From data owners to processors, each role has specific obligations in protecting information. Second, implement privacy by design. Use privacy impact assessments and follow OECD guidelines to build privacy into your processes from the very start. And third, navigate the global compliance landscape. Organizations must understand and comply with various regulations across different jurisdictions. Finally, maintain continuous compliance. Regular assessments, updates, and improvements are necessary to meet evolving requirements and protect data effectively. And now comes the exciting part, putting all these governance and compliance principles into action. Think of it as building your organization's security masterpiece. Start by aligning your privacy and security strategy with your organization's vision. What makes your business unique? How can security enable your success? And then you're going to dive into those privacy impact assessments. They're your treasure map, highlighting where your valuable data lives and what needs protection. Then build privacy policies that don't just tick regulatory boxes, but actually empower your business operations. And here's where it gets interesting. Implement controls that work like a well-oiled machine, protecting data while keeping your business agile. Transform your data controllers, processors, and custodians into privacy champions who understand both their regulatory duties and how their roles drive business success. And finally, create dynamic monitoring and compliance processes that tell the story of your security journey through metrics that matter to your stakeholders. And remember, this isn't just about playing defense. It's about building a security program that helps your organization thrive. So let's talk about the benefits of getting this right. We're not just ticking boxes here. There are real, tangible advantages. Reduced risk is a big one. Fewer security incidents, less damage. Second, enhanced reputation. Customers and partners trust organizations that take security seriously. Improved business operations, secure processes, are often more efficient processes. And of course, compliance with laws and regulations, avoiding fines, penalties, and legal trouble. Remember, a strong security posture isn't just about technology. It's about the people, processes, and strong governance. This is crucial. Security is not a destination, it's a journey. Continuous improvement is essential. You need to regularly review your policies. Are they still relevant? Are they addressing the new threats? Update your security controls. Are you protected against the latest vulnerabilities? Conduct periodic security audits. Get an independent assessment of your security posture and promote ongoing security awareness training. Keep your employees vigilant and responsible. These 4 steps are a cycle: review, update, audit, train, and repeat. The future of information security lies in proactive governance and compliance. By embracing these principles, organizations don't just protect themselves, they create opportunities for innovation and growth. A strong security foundation enables digital transformation. It builds stakeholder trust, and it drives business value. This approach shifts security from a cost center to a strategic enabler, helping organizations thrive in an increasingly connected world. All right, that wraps up today's topics on exam objectives 1.3 and 1.4. Remember, this is a lot of information, so don't be afraid to rewatch sections, pause, and take notes. These sessions will remain on YouTube, so you can watch anytime. Additionally, I will be going back to each one after the live streams to add chapters so you can visit certain sections again. I also recommend using other things to study if you're actually taking the exam. Put all of your resources together. The key here is to understand the concepts, not just memorize the details. Think about how these principles apply in real-world scenarios. And don't forget that managerial perspective. Now it's time to start the after party. This is where we all move over to the Study GRC Discord server, and we join the dedicated CISSP voice channel for open discussion and answer any questions you have. I really recommend not missing this part. Last time, we had tons of knowledge and resource drops. If you're not in the Discord yet, you can go to cissp.britwhite.io for the Discord link. And don't forget to grab your CISSP role when you join so you can find the dedicated channels that we have. Next time, we'll move on to the next objectives within Domain 1, Security and Risk Management, during our live session on Tuesday, March 11th at 6 p.m. Central US time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over in Discord.